On December 13th, the Department of Energy announced that the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory generated a fusion reaction that gave off more energy than was needed to create it. It's a breakthrough researchers around the world have been trying to achieve for decades. Brian Spears is the laboratory's deputy modeling lead for inertial confinement fusion. Brian, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Can you give us a simple explanation of what nuclear fusion is and why it's such a big deal?
Absolutely. In essence, nuclear fusion is the taking of two atomic particles, taking the nuclei of atoms and squeezing them together so hard that they form a new atom and they produce energy in the process. It's so exciting for us because it has the potential to help us understand the conditions in our nuclear stockpile, to study giant planets and suns in a laboratory, and also potentially to produce fusion energy with very easily achievable fuels.
And how long has your lab been working to achieve this?
Oh, well, for me personally, I've been working on it for 18 years, and our laboratory has been conceiving of this for 60. Our actual facility that we produce this on has been in operations for just over a decade, so it has actually been a grand challenge and scientific quest.
So what happened? I mean, after all these years, why were you successful now?
Fusion's not easy. What we do is crush a capsule with fusion fuel inside it to about half the diameter of your hair. When we do that, it becomes so hot and bright that it is actually brighter than looking at the sun by more than 1 billion times, and it lasts for about a few hundred trillionths of a second. So the challenges are to understand what's happening in that reaction, see what's going wrong, and help it be confined. Recently, we both added a little more laser energy to give our implosion some oomph, and we also controlled the way that the laser beams enter the hohlraum. The hohlraum is the device that we use to heat it, and that helped us produce a more spherical and symmetric implosion. And those two things, more energy plus a rounder implosion, put us over the edge.
So is this something that you're able to replicate, and can it be scaled in a way that it's useful?
Yeah, absolutely. We can replicate it. Our experiments at this size and this effort happen about once every 4 to 6 weeks, and so we will be proceeding full steam ahead with this success. As far as scaling, it's a question of what you want to do with it at some scale. At our current scale, it's very useful for understanding our nation's nuclear stockpile, which is one of our principal missions. Many folks are excited about and inspired by the scaling to production of fusion energy, and our current driver does not do that. Our laser is about 0.5% efficient. It's designed for science and this first-of-a-kind demonstration that this can actually happen. But there are certainly lots of folks in the world in the private sector partnering with government to understand exactly how to do this. So yeah, in the future it will scale.
Well, I wanted to ask you that, Brian. I know it's not your particular expertise, but the idea that this is clean energy and it's not harmful to the environment. So how long do you think it could take before it could be used for energy and actually impact the climate?
Yeah, well, there's an old joke amongst us fusion researchers that fusion power is 30 years away and always will be. After our demonstration at NIF that we got more energy out than we put in by the laser, I now suspect that fusion power is not immediate, but I think in my lifetime I will see that. I certainly think in my children's lifetime there is just much excitement and we could be surprised.
So you talked about using lasers. Are there other methods that researchers are using to try to create fusion energy?
Absolutely. There are two major approaches. One is to heat up and crush the nuclear fuel and then confine it with its own mass that surrounds it in a shell. That's called inertial confinement fusion. And the alternative is to compress and confine it using giant magnets and magnetic fields. That's called magnetic confinement fusion. Both those are directions that we could go forward. The magnetic fusion community has very nice hardware, and their engineering is substantial, and they're still working on demonstrations of the physics. We have demonstrated the physics as a first in the fusion energy community, and now it's up to thinking about the engineering and how you would turn that into a reactor. So both approaches are complementary and are great things to have developing in the United States.
Well, tell me a little bit more about some of the biggest challenges that you'll be facing when it comes to creating that fusion energy.
For fusion energy, the challenge is to get to something that is really economically viable. So we did this once in the laboratory, and we do it for scientific purposes, for understanding the way that fusion actually occurs. Once every 4 weeks is not enough. In fact, to be economically viable, you need to do it about 10 times per second. And in fact, you need to get even more energy out than what we put in. So for researchers who are working on that energy production in the future, they'll be focusing on two things. One, doing it fast, and two, squeezing even more energy out than what we got in, which is completely possible. We understand from simulation and theory how to do that. So the field is really wide open today.
So Brian, you were talking about how you've been working on this for many years personally. I wonder what was the feeling like that the moment that you successfully created fusion power?
You know, it's really difficult to put into words. It's something between shock and disbelief. There was a moment of staring at the numbers. We make a lot of neutrons. In scientific notation, it's 10 to the 18 or more. And you always worry that you're reading the wrong thing and that maybe it was 10 or 100 times lower. And so I did a double take and looked at it. And then I immediately began letting people know. My particular group and close colleagues were responsible for making numerical simulation predictions of what would happen. And we predicted the week before that this looked like the most likely outcome was that we would get more energy out than what we put in by the laser. And the feeling of just joy and satisfaction at succeeding after 18 years of doing this personally and knowing how many thousands of people had worked on it was just amazing.
All right. Well, Brian, congratulations, and thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.